Let's go, baby! We are back. Literally, we are back. We were here earlier today doing this show, but I was without this guy who worried me for the last 3 days. Of course, welcome in to an emergency podcast edition of the PHNX D-backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla. Of course, I am known as the mayor of the city of Phoenix for some reason that I can't explain. This guy next to me, though, he is absolutely my vice mayor and your thunderstick, even in a thunderstorm, the one and only Jesse Friedman. Jesse, Diamondbacks, big win. And I know you were out there covering that big series win in San Diego, but it would appear that this team is once again a wagon.
Yeah, so just so everyone knows the backstory here, I just sat in the car for 9 hours and walked in the door of my house driving back from San Diego to Phoenix.
Too much transparency.
I walk in the door, and that is pretty much precisely when this game ended. I've been listening to the radio, and I think at that point, when I turned my car off, it sort of appeared that the Diamondbacks were not going to win this baseball game, right?
Correct.
You had two.
I think
you
a
had
lot of
two
people
outs
felt that way
in the 11th inning. With Will
we can
Smith
even take
on
a
the
step
mound.
back when they were down 1-0 in the bottom of the ninth. Be honest. I mean, at that point, the lack of offense and the fact that Chapman was in there for the Rangers really felt like this one was going to be one of those, like, man, they kept it close, especially considering it was a bullpen game, but they just couldn't muster up any offense to back up this excellent pitching that they got from their bullpen tonight. And Ketel Marte, who honestly has been fairly terrible in the month of August so far, came through with his biggest hit of the month. And I mean, not just that, but he had 2 hits late, which were critical to give the Diamondbacks the win in this game. But Ketel Marte with that home run out of nowhere. Like I said, he came into this game hitting 127, 214, 222 with a 437 OPS so far in the month of August. Not great, but he picked a great time to snap out of it.
He really did. Yeah. I mean, if Ketel doesn't hit that homer, obviously the Diamondbacks wouldn't have had an opportunity to win this game in the 11th inning. Paul Sewald also pitched an impressive 10th inning. You had a runner at third, 1 out in that inning. Obviously a situation that's sort of tailor-made for the Texas Rangers to score a run. And he's able to get a pop-up. He's able to get the final out of the inning after that. And, you figure the D-backs in that situation, they were in a pretty good spot after that happened, right? You go to the bottom of the 10th inning. You feel pretty good with the Rangers not being able to get on the board. The D-backs, we've talked about in the past, they have struggled this season in extra innings. I believe they lost their first 3 games, their first 3 extra inning games of the year. And I think they've now won 3 in a row since then. So they've kind of turned that narrative around, but they've struggled just in general to do kind of like the small ball things, right? Like you got a runner at second, nobody out. Normally in baseball, runner at second, nobody out is supposed to be a recipe for you to score a run, right? Like probably more than half the time.
Especially when you just need one. Right. In the case of like extra innings where, they did have, again, excellent performances from their bullpen to hold the Rangers scoreless and give them a chance to win. Kevin Ginkel, unfortunately, couldn't hold it in his inning of work. But, they had a chance to win it in the 10th. And I don't believe they advanced that runner from second base at all in the 10th. And that's just kind of, once again, the struggles that this team has experienced right there. Runners in scoring position, no outs, and not able to even get them over to third base. But this one very much felt like it was a loss early on. And I mean, honestly, this bullpen deserves all the credit for what they were able to do in this game, because and I don't know what they're going to do going forward. I think they're kind of screwed, but that's just in one man's humble opinion, because they used Joe Mantiply, Scott McGuff, Slade Ciccone, Justin Martinez, Miguel Castro, Paul Sewald, and Kevin Ginkel in this game. Jesse, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's every relief pitcher that they have. With that, not Strzelecki. No, Strzelecki got sent back down, so he's not even here right now, right? So, who am I missing?
Kyle Nelson didn't pitch in
There it is. Well, prepare to do some work tomorrow, Kyle. That's all
Bryce
I can say.
Jarvis also didn't pitch
Oh,
in this
yeah.
game. So yeah, there's a couple guys that didn't pitch in this game. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's at this point, the way that the Diamondbacks have to operate is push in all of the chips on the game that's in front of you and figure out the challenges that come with that when those challenges come, right?
Yeah.
And the Diamondbacks were in a position, I think, to be a little extra aggressive, knowing that Zach Gallen is on the mound tomorrow, and you have an off day coming after that, right, on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So the D-backs were in position where they could kind of go a little crazy in this game, and they did. We originally thought that Slade Cecconi was going to start this game for the Diamondbacks, as he's done the last couple times in this rotation spot. But they switched things up last minute. They decided to go to Joe Mantiply to open things, which I think made sense. Just matchup wise, the top of the order, have Mantiply face those guys. A couple lefties in the mix there with Corey Seager and Nathaniel Lowe. And then you turn things over to Scott McGough, which was maybe a twist we didn't see coming. Kind of wondered if they'd go straight to Cecconi at that point, but they go to Scott McGough, who pitched well and has pitched well in back-to-back outings in this early game sort of opener-ish, but not quite the opener kind of a role. He's looked pretty good these last couple games.
It's an interesting strategy, especially considering that the one big key here is that both Bryce Jarvis and Slade Cecconi have been used there in the middle, right, where they still get a hefty workload. In this case, Cecconi went 5 innings, gave up 3 hits, 1 run, and struck out 2, right? But he did the majority of the work, in a 5-inning day for Slade is a fairly good start. Like, that's what we would expect him to go if he would have started the game and had a good outing like he did. So it's kind of an interesting strategy, the way that Torey Lovullo is kind of layering this and putting in some of his relievers as openers, and then still turning to somebody for the bulk of the workload. And then that worked out for him today.
It's a weird strategy. But I know Torey talked about this before the game. I wasn't there because I was waiting for a boulder to be moved on the interstate for 2 hours. So yeah, that was unfortunate. But yeah, Torey before the game today, from what I've heard, talked about this new opener thing and how it's something that he hasn't really been too keen on in the past, and it's obviously a rising trend around baseball, and he's kind of learned to embrace it. And it's hard to argue with. I mean, it's worked out pretty well for the Diamondbacks. It seems like they're not necessarily winning all of these games, but they're at least hanging around. And there's this sense of, if one guy struggles, which really hasn't happened too much in these games, but you get the sense that if Slade Cecconi had maybe had some struggles midway through his outing, the D-backs don't necessarily have to push him to get through 5 or 6 innings. They can pivot another direction sooner. There's just a lot of freedom with this. Whereas if you have Slade Cecconi start the game, then to get through 5 innings, you probably have to get through that top of the lineup 3 times, which is something they seem to be trying to protect him from. So yeah, I think it makes sense as long as the D-backs are in the position that they're in, which is not a great position, where you have a couple spots in your rotation that are far from secure at the moment, with this Slade Cecconi spot, and then the other spot where it's usually Bryce Jarvis getting some work along with some other guys. This is, I think, the best way to handle it. And it's interesting to see Torey Lovullo kind of evolve in his managerial strategy and be more open to using these kinds of things.
First of all, Cogs is in our chat, and I thought we DFA'd Cogs. I could be wrong about that.
Did that happen while I was gone? Is that news?
I was pretty certain that we DFA'd Cogs. That happened in the Discord chat, which, if you're not a diehard, join us right now. Become a diehard. That way you don't miss out on all the great stuff we have going on in the Discord and everywhere else. But I'll allow Cogs to be in here until he finds a new home. But I want to take a moment, and I want any of you hypocrites out there that said nasty things about Mike Hazen and his trade deadline moves to apologize right now. I'll give you an open forum to do so, because Tommy Pham is the hottest goddamn hitter in baseball right now, and that's factual. That late inning hit gives him his 12th game hitting streak. And Paul Sewald, after that one disastrous save that made us all say, "Oh my God, what have the Diamondbacks done? What is this guy really right? What we thought?" Has not given up a run. Has not given up a single run. So let's give it up for Paul Sewald. Let's give it up for Tommy Pham. And Tommy Pham, by the way, of course, is our king snake, because who else could deserve to be a king snake? He's got a 12-game hitting streak. My man absolutely deserves it. He was harassed in San Diego, taking a lot of heat socially on this. There's a lot of division about whether people are backing up Tommy Pham on this whole incident with a fan in San Diego, or saying that he's being sensitive to the situation. I don't really care. If I got stabbed, I would tell anybody that bothered me or heckled me that they got one warning, and then I'm not gonna put up with it anymore. But they were yelling some nasty stuff. Like, we showed the videos, Jesse, that you got from both Tommy and from Torey Lovullo about the treatment from the fans there, and it was great to see Lovullo backing his player up like this. And honestly, I mean, I think we all here kind of side with Pham when it comes to people crossing a line and also being like oddly 12 inches from you, but then thinking you could say whatever you want to a professional athlete, which is just something that's really odd in today's day of being a fan. But whatever. I thought we would learn from certain basketball players going into the crowd and beating people up, but that's a whole other topic for another time. I will say this, though. Tommy Pham has been an absolute godsend lately, especially considering the way that this team struggled. And just, we talked about looking for that spark of energy, and he has seemed to bring it. And, we also getting Gabriel Moreno back has seemed to bring it, but it's like now it feels like this team has confidence that they can do things like what they did here tonight, which seemed fairly improbable.
Tommy Pham, he's been huge. You mentioned the 12-game hitting streak. When we talked to him in San Diego before, that whole part of the interview about what happened on the field when he was in the on-deck circle and all of that stuff, he talked about, just how he's played generally since coming over to the Diamondbacks and how he is far from satisfied. He talked about how he feels like he's given away a lot of at-bats, and how the hitting streak is nice, but it's been, a lot of 1-for-4s, not as many multi-hit games as he would like. So it's clear that he operates as, sort of a perfectionist, as pro athletes often do. He certainly believes that there's more in there for him. And I mean, he's basically at this point, after a rough start, he's basically back to his numbers with the Mets. I mean, he was a really good contributor with the New York Mets in the first part of the season, and he's basically just continued that since joining this Diamondbacks team. I think when he first came over, some people were maybe asking questions like, all right, it's not a great look if a contending team acquires a guy like Tommy Pham and he's instantly batting third. Like, that kind of says something about the state of your offense. Like, all right, you're acquiring Tommy Pham and he is right in the middle of your lineup. But frankly, I mean, he's been, without Tommy Pham and what he's done, the Diamondbacks don't win a lot of these games that they've won recently. It has very much been because, not only because of his performance, but because he's been up in a lot of the pivotal situations in these games, as he was today. And I mean, it's been an absolutely enormous for the Diamondbacks what he's been able to do, and they're going to need for him to keep it up, because, as you said before, Ketel Marte, although he hit a huge home run in this game, he's kind of struggled in August, and Corbin Carroll's kind of been struggling. Lourdes Gurriel is not quite back to the player he was early in the season. So the D-backs have really needed that extra lift that Tommy Pham has given them.
You're absolutely right. Someone in the chat said Ketel Marte deserves to be the king snake. You're absolutely right. We could have gone either way on this. I think I really wanted to highlight what Tommy Pham has done for this team over the last 12 games and really being a big part of the reason why they've had this success lately. But Ketel Marte, who, like I said earlier, really has struggled in the month of August, picked a great time for him to have, kind of a breakout situation for him. The Diamondbacks they're not even here without Ketel Marte. Tommy Pham doesn't even have a chance to get that hit without Ketel Marte hitting that home run in the bottom of the ninth, and also without Ketel getting on base there in the 11th. So, I mean, this was Ketel's a fine moment for Ketel. And I mean, he's having his struggles lately, but luckily the rest of the team is kind of heating up a little bit, so he isn't the person carrying the load like he was during, that stretch in July where he seemed to be the only guy that could do anything at the plate. But I mean, this team right now, they're finding ways to win baseball games again, and it's very exciting because someone in the chat asked about it, and here you go. Here are your wild card standings after tonight's win. Ooh, and look at this sexy ass wild card standings graphic. Diamondbacks now half a game back in the wild card race, right behind those San Francisco Giants, who the Diamondbacks still have some games against. They also have a whole lot of games against the red hot Chicago Cubs. So there is a chance for them to really control their destiny here. Honestly, this series was one of those series where the Rangers come in not playing well and the Diamondbacks come in kind of hot, and this is the result, right? And at this point, I think you could just be thrilled with the split, but if they could possibly get the sweep tomorrow, man, I mean, this team is really on a roll at that point. And then they go into a 4-game series with the Cincinnati Reds, who again, they're right here with the Diamondbacks, and it's kind of a critical series as well.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just that the D-backs are a half game out of the third wild card spot; it's that they're a game out of the second wild card spot.
Yeah,
they're just right in the middle of this race. I think the Phillies are certainly on sturdy ground at this point, but Cubs, Giants, D-backs, Reds, Marlins. I mean, buckle up, right? You got 5 teams for 2 spots, and it's going to be a dogfight the rest of the way to see how this turns out. As you mentioned, D-backs have 7 games against the Cubs. All 7 games that the D-backs and Cubs play this year, they all happen in September. You've got the 4-game series with the Reds this weekend, which is huge. The D-backs also have 2 more against the Giants. If they win both of those games, they would control the season series. They would have that tiebreaker. If they split or lose those 2 games, the Giants would have the tiebreaker. And then I believe between the D-backs and the Marlins have that tiebreaker since they won both of those series this year. So yeah, D-backs are not necessarily in a great position when it comes to some of these tiebreakers. They got swept by the Reds earlier, so they very well might have to beat these teams in the standings rather than just tie them, which is something to monitor moving forward. But yeah, I mean the way that this race has materialized in the last week or so, the Giants have really taken a big step back. The Reds and the Marlins continue to struggle. The Cubs continue to play really well. But they're, just a game ahead of the Diamondbacks right now with 7 games between those 2 teams to go. So this is going to be absolute madness, Derek. It's August 21st right now. You've got about a month and a half to go in the season. Yeah. It's going to be crazy.
Nicholas in the chat says playoff baseball this weekend and the rest of the year, basically. Amazing. We are here. And this is it. This is exactly it. I think back to Paul Sewald's comments about, the fact that you're just excited to play meaningful games at this point of the year, and the Diamondbacks are not only playing meaningful games, but from one series to the next, things are going to change. I mean, we're probably going to go through some sort of bad stretch still here before the end of the season. But if you talk about that really terrible series, that really terrible stretch that the Diamondbacks had in July, like at least you had it in July. At least you kind of had it in the middle part of the season where you can kind of get it behind you and learn from it and try to adapt and make yourself a better baseball team before you have a chance to really blow it as we get close to the end of the season. These series are going to be so much fun, and this team is going to be so much fun to watch. There's expanded rosters coming, here soon, and that's going to allow the Diamondbacks to, call up some of their young guys, probably the guys that have had experience this year, and just kind of make this team a deeper team. But man, it's going to be fun to watch. Tonight's game was something special. I don't feel like we've seen this out of this team all year. I mean, I know that they are the answer backs. I know we've seen them come back, but I mean, the way that they not only, found Ketel specifically found a way to hit that home run in the 9th inning and tie this game up. And then for them to kind of overcome that 2-run, not just 1 run in extra innings, which I mean, I think 1 run versus 2 runs is a world of a difference when you talk about extra innings, because every team feels like they should and can get that ghost runner in. But for the Rangers to have scored 2 runs really made it feel like this game was out of reach for the Diamondbacks, and they somehow found a way to fight back and win this one. This is the type of game that builds that level of confidence that you can beat any opponent at any time, no matter how many runs you're down by. And I know that's being a bit dramatic considering they were only down by 2, but it still very much feels like this is the kind of thing that can help this team grow and become more confident as it goes down the stretch. Benjamin in the chat says, can someone tell me how this bullpen keeps pulling this off? The D-backs have no business winning these games with the pitchers they are putting out there. I can't argue with that, but let's not question it, Benjamin. Let's just tip our cap and keep it moving, because I mean, the Diamondbacks have games like what Brandon Pfaadt put up against the Padres that they lost, that they had no business losing considering the outing that Pfaadt gave them.
Yeah, it really is true. The D-backs just haven't, like, these types of games, the D-backs haven't generally been winning this season, right? They were, the answer backs very much in the first few months of the year. But even then, it seemed like most of the answering back that they were doing was more in the beginning of games. If they were down 3-0 or 4-0, they would often come back, make up those deficits, and make those games interesting. They didn't have as many games like this, though. I mean, to look back on that 11th inning one more time, Nick Ahmed flies out to start the inning, right? So you've got Gabby Moreno taking third, which was honestly very risky base running move that I'm not sure I fully understand, but he takes third. He's in there, runner at third, 1 out. Corbin Carroll comes in and pinch hits for Alek Thomas. I was a little confused, to be honest, why Corbin Carroll didn't pinch hit for Alek Thomas the last time around, because Alek Thomas faced Aroldis Chapman in his previous at bat. Kind of wondered if the D-backs would make that move then, but for whatever reason, Torrey decided to make that move here. It doesn't pan out. Corbin Carroll pops up. There's a runner at third, 2 outs. The D-backs are down by 2 runs. That's when I pull into the driveway, Derek, and I turn the ignition, and it's like, okay, this Diamondbacks game, I mean, this appears to probably be over most likely. And then I walk inside. What happens? Ketel Marte is intentionally walked, which is a very interesting move by Bruce Bochy. Because although Ketel obviously hit the homer in his last at bat,
he's struggled. Like I said, in the month of August, he really hasn't been that good. So it was a surprising move.
Yeah, it was a little surprising. He was putting on the tying runner. I know the D-backs made a pretty much identical move in intentionally putting on Corey Seager in the top half of the inning, but it's a little different when it's the top half of the inning and you don't necessarily know exactly how many runs are going to be scored or anything. In the bottom half, the D-backs know that they need 2 runs, and Bruce Bochy was willing to put that second runner on base. So you've got first and third 2 outs at that point. Still not exactly a great spot, but there you go. Geraldo Perdomo is able to hit a double, an enormous clutch hit. Ketel Marte doesn't score from first, so the D-backs don't tie the game.
It was
Tommy
weird
Pham
because,
comes up and does his thing.
Like you said, they were so aggressive with Gabriel Moreno on the base path, and then like 2 batters later, here they are holding Ketel up at third on what looked like arguably he could have scored on it, but
Garcia is a cannon of an arm. I didn't see the play. I did not see the play live, so I don't know what it looked like, but Adolis Garcia has an excellent arm. So
no, but he got it into the cutoff man, but it looked like Ketel had he kept going. But I don't know. I mean, I obviously they made the right call in the end, and I just thought with the way that this game had gone, with the lack of offense, that it was really a smart move, or it ended up being a smart move. Michael McDermott says walking Seager was the right move, just didn't work out. That
for sure
was the key there, as well, and that just didn't go as well for Kevin Ginkel. But this team has something good going for it right now, and I don't really know. I don't know what caused them to struggle the way they did, but this team is once again looking like that team that we saw in April and May. And this is not a shocking win, but I mean, a pretty good win considering that their record against above 500 teams hasn't been very good this year.
It hasn't. No, I think after today it'd be 27-40, which is still not great. 27-40 against above 500 teams, 38-21 against below 500 teams. The D-backs haven't, for anyone, kind of bringing up that narrative. It's true. The D-backs have done a lot of their damage against the lesser teams in the league, and they've struggled against teams, of the caliber of the Texas Rangers. But as you said earlier, the Rangers have been struggling. They just got swept by the Brewers over the weekend.
Right.
So, they've run into a little bit of a roadblock, and tomorrow's a big game as well now, right? With the D-backs winning this game, a game that on paper they weren't really supposed to win, right? Jordan Montgomery against the bullpen Slade Ciccone thing. Now you're set up tomorrow to potentially take both games of this series, which would be enormous for the Diamondbacks to be able to do that. We've talked a lot about how difficult their schedule is the rest of the way. The Texas Rangers are about as good of a team as they're going to play the rest of the season. So if they're able to finish the job tomorrow, if Zach Gallen is able to come out and do Zach Gallen things against one of the best offenses in the game, that would be enormous.
He's been pretty good at home, Jesse. I don't know if you are aware of that, but anyway, we thank you guys for joining us for this late night edition of I guess an emergency reaction podcast. I don't know what this is, but we just had to talk about this game because it was a lot of fun. And so is this team. So let's keep watching them and let's hope that they go far this season. Who knows? The sky's the limit with this team right now because they just seem to be a mystery to all of us as far as how successful they could truly be. But again, we appreciate you guys for stopping by. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Cap_Caveman with a K. Jesse is at Jesse N. Friedman. Our show is at what is it? PHNX_DBAC, something like that.
I think
but
that's
all
what
roads,
it was. Yeah,
I think that's it. But all roads lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys again so much for stopping in tonight. We always appreciate your time. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it is so much more fun when Tommy Pham hits a walk-off, baby. Let's go.